Okay, let's get right to it. It is 3 o'clock p.m. I'm Tom Novak. Thanks for joining me. We're talking about severe weather. I'm a little surprised that we're getting a quick outbreak like this, but conditions are there for it. They're favorable. They're not perfect conditions for severe weather, and I'll show you that here in just a little bit. I'm most worried about wind and hail, and not as much tornadoes, and I'll show you why here in just a little bit. By the way, this is sponsored by American Waterworks. My good friends at American Waterworks in the Rochester and Fargo-Moorhead areas actually service all of Minnesota, eastern North Dakota, western Wisconsin, northern Iowa. Anyway, they deal with weather all the time. They deal with your foundations, with water, anything that's associated with water leaking somewhere at your home. Give American Waterworks a call. They repair foundations and take care of your home. Thank you, American Waterworks. All right, here we go. This is the radar out of the Twin Cities. And here are the storms. They're moving east, and now they're starting to turn southeast, and they're actually building even a little bit further now southwest. St. Cloud, it's going to be close. Not sure if you're going to get hit by this. You may get grazed by some storms in St. Cloud, but I think as these storms head into the Twin Cities metro area, they're going to continue to expand further south, and that's why I'm expecting at least some severe weather over portions of the Twin Cities metro. And then as we continue on, I would think this area here of southeastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin needs to be on the lookout. That would be American Waterworks and the crew there in Rochester. Be aware as we get in towards those early evening hours that's when the storms will be approaching your area too. But in general, and I'm showing you that right here, in general, I think a good chunk of eastern Minnesota, portions of southern Minnesota, and a large chunk of western Wisconsin, northeastern Iowa needs to be on the lookout for the potential for severe weather. I don't think this is going to be a widespread event. This will be more scattered activity. But any storms that do fire up here in the next 3 to 6 hours are certainly going to pack a punch as a cold front. Actually, a rather impressive cold front with some dry air is surging east and southeast towards eastern Minnesota and western Wisconsin. That's providing a focus for these severe thunderstorms along with that warm front that is over eastern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin. This is your moisture channel loop from outer space, showing the moisture in the mid and upper levels of our atmosphere. And look at this. You don't have to look very far to see some dry air. You can see it, as I mentioned, surging into the Dakotas now in western Minnesota. And it's on the leading edge of that dry punch is where you get these storms to develop. And the moisture channel is showing it beautifully. The storms developing over central Minnesota. And yes, I'm expecting them to continue to develop and extend further south and east into southeastern Minnesota. What a beautiful looking visible satellite loop. Wow, if you're in Alexandria or Bemidji, Minnesota, you can probably see the tops of these thunderstorms as you look to the east and southeast of you as they are billowing up to about 50,000 feet in the atmosphere right now here, just east and southeast of the Brainerd area. Just leaving the Mille Lacs Lake area, and they are continuing to move east and then eventually probably southeast here towards western Wisconsin, the rest of eastern Minnesota and southeastern Minnesota. But just a brilliant looking visible satellite picture from outer space. And here's your infrared channel. Of course, the brighter greens and yellows shows you intensifying storms. At least what it actually shows you are the cloud tops and the temperature measurement of those cloud tops. And the cooler the cloud tops, so those greens and yellows, that means the colder it is up there. Usually means that these clouds are reaching high into the atmosphere. And yes, right over, well, now east of Brainerd and just east of Mille Lacs, that's where the storms are really cooking. And they will move in a trajectory something like this here over the next 3 to 6 hours. Here's your rapid refresh guidance. And we are looking at about the 500 millibar height, so about 20 to 25,000 feet in our atmosphere. You can see this is a punch. These are strong winds at 20 to 25,000 feet that are racing through the Dakotas and now into southern Minnesota. It's usually on the nose or on the left front quad of these strong winds is where you get some pretty good lift, and that's happening right now over Minnesota, eastern Minnesota, and now northwestern Wisconsin. Now, when we look at some of the severe weather parameters, and I really want to look at shear in the atmosphere, you could see the shear as winds change in velocity as you head up in the atmosphere. That's what's happening here over southern Minnesota now into western Wisconsin. So we have good shear in the atmosphere. And when we look at a sounding, and I don't want to get too technical with you guys, but when we look at a sounding, you can see that the winds, we're not getting what I call a Viking horn shape like this with this colored line here in our sounding in what we call a hodograph. So I'm not that worried, at least not as worried about tornadoes as I am for straight line winds, because the winds in our atmosphere are basically coming from the west to east all through the atmosphere. And you can see how as we go up into the atmosphere, the winds are increasing in speed. So that's real good shear. We don't have good helicity, or not much twist in the atmosphere, but we have good shear. And that's the reason why I think we will worry more about strong winds and hail than we would tornadoes with this event. But regardless, a pretty good looking shear environment in our atmosphere to cause some severe thunderstorms. And the energy in the atmosphere, not that impressive, but we do have some. About 2,000 JKGs of energy in our atmosphere, which means as these thunderstorms continue to move east and southeast, they're going to be able to tap into this energy here that's located over east central and southeastern Minnesota. And that's why I think the likelihood of some development here in the Twin Cities and Rochester area is there for later this afternoon. All right, last but not least, let's just take a quick look at the future satellite from the Rapid Refresh guidance, and I'll rewind it here, and you can see how it's picking up on at least the development of the thunderstorms early this afternoon in central and north central Minnesota. And I'll watch what it does with these storms as we go through time. This is at about 5 o'clock p.m. this afternoon. You can see it's got storms blowing up right near the Twin Cities metro. And then as we continue through the early evening hours, those storms continue east and southeast towards Rochester and La Crosse and Eau Claire. So yes, these are the areas that I'm most concerned about here over the next 3 to 6 hours for severe thunderstorms. A severe thunderstorm watch is in place for those areas until 10 p.m. So that's something that we're going to need to watch out for, and certainly keep an eye on radar here over the next 6 hours. Let's take one more look at radar. This is as of about 3:05 now this afternoon, and we'll zoom in, and there it is. If you're in Mora, Minnesota, you need to be buckling down right now. It's looking really nasty up there. And then eventually, if you're traveling on the 35 corridor up towards Duluth, you've got just a few minutes before these storms are going to roll in across the 35 corridor. And yes, I do expect them to continue to develop further south and east towards the Twin Cities metro here as we go through the afternoon hours. All right, best of luck out there. Keep an eye to the sky. These storms are going to move quick, so they won't be around for very long, but they certainly will pack a punch in areas that get hit. All right, have a great evening and stay safe.